the fastest way to build a 100K online business. We're going to be taking a look at 4 different business models, and I'm going to be showing you which one comes out on top, looking at barrier to entry, cost of entry, expertise required, profitability, and longevity. So really just a full 360 analysis so that by the end of it, it's very clear which one comes out on top and which one you can dedicate your focus, energy, and attention to. And the reason why I say that is because I'm sure you're watching a ton of different videos on Amazon FBA, on trading, on social media marketing agency, on dropshipping, and you know you want to start an online business, you see the massive opportunity, but the main thing you're struggling with is that you can't quite pick the right one. And so that's what I want to do with this video, give you a ton of clarity so that you have a roadmap that you can follow and you know why you're following that. And honestly, I wish I'd watched a video just like this when I first got my start in the online space. And I wish I just knew what business model was the perfect for me instead of investing a bunch of time and energy into business models, getting a bit of a shiny object syndrome, and really just not making much progress at the start of my career. So really excited for this. If you guys have subscribed to the channel, obviously you know that I talk a lot about social media marketing agency, but this is going to be a purely unbiased video. I'm not simply going to be vouching for SMMA and disregarding all business models out there. So really excited for this, as I said. And without further ado, let's get right into it. I'm a very pragmatic person, and the first thing that I want to do before I even start looking at the business models is diagnose where you're probably at if you're watching this video. And I'm guessing you're probably not really old, you're probably between 18, maybe at 25, maybe potentially 30, and maybe even 35, right? But the matter of the fact is you are probably young. You are probably at the start of your entrepreneurship journey. If you're a matured entrepreneur, this still applies for you, especially if you're young, right? But you're probably young and you're probably at the start of your entrepreneurship journey. You haven't built a massive company yet, and you just want to get your foot through the door. So there's a few things that you have right now, right? And there's a few things that you do not have. And we really want to dissect those and diagnose where you're currently at to really match the business model that we want to pick based on where we currently stand right now, right? And so as a young entrepreneur, you have energy and you have time, right? Those are really the 2 main things that you currently have. And trust me, that might not seem like a lot, but it's actually huge, especially compared to an old seasoned entrepreneur who doesn't really have much energy, right? Because they're old, and who doesn't really have much time because that's been taken up by a lot of different tasks, right? That they have on their plate. So that is what you do have. What you do not have is tons of money, right? You could have decent cash reserves. Maybe you build that up, working a few part-time jobs or full-time jobs, whatever it is, right? But you do not have tons of money. The second thing is expertise. Since you're pretty new to the space, you don't really know core skill sets, right? And you also don't have much experience as an entrepreneur. You don't really know the ropes when it comes to entrepreneurship. You haven't had to deal with a lot of rejection. You haven't had to deal with a lot of failure. Maybe you haven't been burnt in the past. Or quite simply, you haven't really experienced many successes, right? So that is what you do not have, and that is what you do have. And so knowing this, what I want to do now, as I told you guys, is I want to take a look at the barrier to entry, cost of entry for that business model, expertise required, profitability, longevity, okay? And I want to take a look at these areas for 4 business models. And these are the 4 business models that I would say are the most popular in the online space, okay? So first, we've got e-com dropshipping. I would include Amazon FBA here, okay? The second one, we've got trading, right? So Forex, stocks, whatever, day trading, whatever it is, right? The third one is SaaS. So this is probably the less popular one, simply because as you'll see in just a bit, it does require quite a bit of expertise and capital to start, but it's hugely profitable. And what this stands for is service as a software. So any software that you use for your business, which are very, very popular. For example, from my agency, I use a ton of different softwares. And they're great. They make my life easier. They make me make more money, right? So they are great. They can certainly be a very profitable business model. And the final one is an agency, right? So this is the service-based business model where you offer a service, your expertise, in return for a fee, okay? So those are the 4 business models that we're going to be taking a look at. Now, I'm going to be rating them in regards to these 5 criteria, okay? So let's start with e-com and dropshipping and Amazon FBA, basically selling a product online, okay? So the barrier to entry, I would say, is pretty low, right? And that's the case with most business models that we're gonna speak about. So the barrier to entry is pretty low. Pretty much all you need is a Shopify store, right? If you're doing dropshipping, then find a supplier for your product and find ways to sell that product. And that could be through influencer marketing or through Facebook ads, okay? So the barrier to entry is not super low, I would say, because you do have to master quite a few areas, right? And I'll talk about that in just a second, but it's not huge, right? Now, the cost of entry, here's where I would say dropshipping and Shopify kind of go wrong, simply because yes, especially with dropshipping, you're not paying for actual products, right? Because you only pay for the product once a customer buys from you, right? But you have to pay for advertising. You have to pay for the website, for example, right? You have to pay for the actual branding side of things if you want to build an actual brand. And those are the brands that are having success nowadays, right? It's not so much the brands that just find a product and just put together a really bad looking website. That could have worked in 2016 or 2017, right? But that doesn't really fly in 2020. Okay, so the cost of entry is not huge, right? But you're gonna have to spend 1, 2, maybe potentially even 3K, right, to start this business model. So that is the cost of entry. The expertise required, I would say, is around. It's not huge, right? But you do have to master a bunch of different areas. I'm talking marketing, I'm talking branding, I'm talking product fulfillment, right? Logistics, I'm talking copywriting for your website. I'm talking sales. You need to master sales psychology and what gets people to buy. You need to master design as well. So there's a few areas that you need to master: customer service and customer experience. So if you really want to have success, there's a lot of areas that you need to master simply because you're building a brand, right? And to build a brand, there's certain aspects, like there's marketing, there's sales, there's customer service, etc., etc. Okay, so that's really the expertise required. Now, when it comes to profitability, the thing about dropshipping is not, the profitability is pretty slim, okay? A really good profit margin for a lot of dropshipping stores is around a 30% profit margin. For e-commerce, I would say it's much lower, simply because with e-commerce, you have to have inventory, you have to have your own fulfillment center. So usually the profit margins are much more slim, but you could be looking at 30, 25%, right? And so the profit margins are not huge. And then when it comes to longevity, e-commerce is definitely, it's only just getting started, right? And here's where I really want to draw a distinction. E-commerce is huge, right? And it's only going to get bigger. Dropshipping on the flip side, right, is a dying business model. And the reason why that is because the customer experience is not great. It's also becoming increasingly hard to be profitable with Facebook ads simply because the supply is up, right? So it's just a simple case of supply versus demand. And so it's not as easy to get incredibly profitable, especially in the front end with Facebook ads, right? And so most e-com brands have to rely on the lifetime value, which most dropshipping brands don't even care about, right? And so the longevity, I would say, for dropshipping, for e-commerce is massive, right? For dropshipping, I would say is very, very slim. Okay, so that is the e-commerce dropshipping model. Now, when it comes to trading, the barrier to entry, I would say, is pretty much the same as dropshipping, right? The cost of entry is much lower, right? So you don't really need much to start with, apart from your brains and your skills. The expertise required, I would say that you actually really need to know what you are doing, simply because you're playing with your own money as well, right? And so there's quite a big risk factor involved. The profitability, I would say that is pretty high, obviously. Now, when it comes to profitability, I want to talk about this in regards to longevity as well. The thing about trading is that it's not a sustainable business model. I would probably not even include it in this category. And the reason why that is because you can't really build a business out of it that can churn out cash pretty much predictably, right? There's so much uncertainty when it comes to trading, and it's very hard to make a business out of that. Now, if you love trading, more power to you, right? And definitely do it. I'm just saying, for me, I like building a business that has longevity, right? That has foundation, that actually adds value to people. And so trading for me is not the ideal business model. The other reason why I like building a business instead of trading is because I love communicating with my team. I love building a team, right, that is shooting for a mission, a common mission. I love talking to my clients, etc., etc. So personally, trading for me is not really a business. But when it comes to longevity, I would say that since it's not predictable, right, it's pretty much very, very slim, right? There's really no longevity. You could be trading for the rest of your life, right? But if we take a look at it purely from a predictability side of things, it doesn't really have much longevity. And then in profitability, it really depends, right? And so for this, I'm just gonna leave it as that. Now, for SaaS, service as a software, I would say that the barrier to entry is by far the highest. And the reason why that is because you need a team of probably even more, right? Compared to that, you need a team of engineers, right? That can actually code. You will need a team of programmers, coders, and stuff like that. So you really need high-skilled people. Certain softwares are much easier to build, but you can't just build the software out of nowhere, right? When it comes to the cost of entry, it's also the highest, right? Simply because to get this high-skilled people in your team costs quite a bunch of money, right? As well as the actual infrastructure costs quite a bit of money, right? So the cost of entry, definitely the highest. The expertise required, definitely the highest as well, okay? The profitability, this is where is also the highest, right? Services and software tend to have very, very high profit margins. It does tend to cost a lot to get a customer through the door on the front end side of things, right? But the profitability of that customer, especially if it's a month-to-month subscription, is very, very high, okay? So that would be for the profitability, and the longevity, it can be very, very high as well, right? Also on the profitability side of things, when you build a software, you can sell it for a lot of money, right? Especially if it's a successful software. You could certainly sell it for hundreds of millions of dollars, right? So that's what I would say for SaaS companies. Now, it's very apparent that software is not the type of business model that you would probably start straight out the bat, especially if you're just getting started in the entrepreneurship space. And I'll talk about that in a few minutes, okay? And the final thing is the agency business model, okay? And the agency business model, if I'm able to get the pen, is, it has a very, very low barrier to entry, okay? And the reason why that could be a good or bad is simply because if you're really, really good, then you're gonna have no problem, but you're gonna have to stand out, right? You're gonna have to have a unique value offering. You're gonna have to do things a bit differently to what most agency owners are doing, okay? But the good news for you is that most agency owners don't have a clue as to what they're doing. So in my opinion, a low barrier to entry is actually really good, because there's a lot of people that get into the space and they don't know what they're doing. And if you're just much better than them, then it's pretty easy for you, okay? So the cost of entry is also very, very low, okay? Why? Because you don't need much to start. You just have expertise in your head, right? You have a contractor or a team member who delivers a service, and that is that, okay? And then maybe a few softwares here and there. But I literally have videos on this channel, like this one, for example, where I show you how you can start with just literally 15 point something dollars, right? So the expertise required is probably the main thing, right? Because you do need expertise to get them results. I would just put it out here. But the thing is, you have a team member who does the actual service delivery, right? So you can put the team together who has the right expertise to actually deliver the service that you are offering as an agency, okay? Yes, technically you could deliver the service yourself if you are a Facebook ads expert, for example, and you're doing Facebook ads for businesses, but that would certainly cap your growth because you're not able to duplicate yourself, right? It's not very scalable. And that's more of the freelancer model, which I haven't spoken about and I will not speak about in this video, okay? So that is the third thing. The fourth thing is profitability. And here is where it gets really, really fun for agency, the agency model, right? The profitability is very high. You could be looking at 80-85% profit margins. And the reason why that is because you are selling a service. There's no cost of goods sold attached to it, right? What we're selling is just a non-tangible piece of intellectual property, right? And so that is why the profit margins are very, very nice. And the final thing is longevity. And longevity is very, very high. And I would just put it as the same as a SaaS, simply because, especially if you're a marketing agency, right? Businesses are always gonna be needing marketing agencies. Why? Because marketing is one of those skills that is always just in demand, right? And in need. Yes, the platforms might change. It might not be Facebook ads in 10 years, right? But it will just simply be a different platform. What doesn't change is the service and the fact that businesses are always going to need marketing agencies to help them grow and to help them get their product in the hands of a lot more people. So that never changes, okay? And that is that for the actual breakdown. Now, just to wrap things up, the question that we have to ask ourselves, taking a look at the data, is what would be the best business model to start if you're young and you're just getting started as an entrepreneur? And in my personal opinion, is the agency business model. And the reason why that is because anyone can get started, right? There's really no excuses. And if you're just a slight edge, if you're just slightly better, and if you're watching this channel, I'm sure you're dedicated to your craft, and I'm sure you're one of those people that really want to stand out from the noise. So I don't think you'll have any problem with that, right? The cost of entry is pretty low, right? And so if you don't have much money, it's incredibly blissful because there's only upside, right? If you don't sign any clients for your agency, right, there's really no cost attached to that. You're not burning through cash, right? Because you only get paid when you sign a client. There's not a huge cost of running the business. In fact, you can get it to a point where you're literally spending $10 a month, right? Just running the business if you don't sign any clients. And that's what a monthly subscription of Netflix costs you, okay? So that's the second reason why I think the agency model is far superior to a lot of business models that we spoke about, because for most business models, you have quite a high cost of entry, which means that you're burning through cash right from the start, which is not as beginner friendly. When it comes to the expertise, yes, we want to make sure that we provide an incredible service to our clients, because that is the way you build an agency that has longevity. But the thing is, you hire the right people to come in to your agency and deliver the service. So you'll have no problem with that. When it comes to the profitability, the SaaS companies, as we saw, have huge profit margins, right? But also the agency model has insane profit margins because we're selling a service, we're not selling a product, right? And so to get to 10K, for example, you could literally have 5 clients paying you $2,000 a month, which is not impossible, right? It's pretty doable, and that would be profit. But if you wanted to get to 10K a month profit with dropshipping, you'd have to get to around 30K a month in revenue, okay? And that is selling a lot of products. Obviously, depending on your average order value, you could calculate that, but that is selling a lot more products, okay? And when it comes to longevity, this is massive for me, simply because when I started my social media marketing agency, I wanted to get into a business model that was not only going to be here today and potentially gone the next year, right? Which is kind of what's happening with dropshipping. It's a bit of a dying business model. And if you're doing dropshipping, power to you as well. Honestly, this video is a very unbiased diagnosis of the whole situation from my experience of diving into these business models myself. Okay, but when it comes to longevity, dropshipping definitely does not come out on top. And when it comes to predictability and building an actual rock solid business, trading definitely does not come out on top either. And so in a nutshell, that is why I love the agency business model. And the final thing that I will say on the longevity side of things is that with the agency business model, and this is the main thing actually I would say about the agency business model, and I've left it to the end, but the main thing about the agency business model is that it's not only the agency that has a ton of longevity, but it's also you as a person who has incredible longevity. And the reason why I say that is because with the agency business model, you learn a lot of very valuable skills. For example, you're working with e-commerce brands and you're helping them scale. You get to not only learn about growth hacking strategies, but put them in practice on other businesses, right? And so you really learn what it takes to build a business online. So then later down the line, when you do, for example, e-commerce if you want, or software as a service, a SaaS company, then you can put all the skills that you've learned by doing the service-based business model, right? And you can transfer them into other business models later down the line that may require more money to actually start, right? And you can not only put the money that you generated with the agency business model, but also the skills that you've learned and then transfer them to those businesses. So guys, that is it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, go ahead and drop a big thumbs up. I'd really appreciate it. Also leave down below any comments, any questions you may have on this video, and I'll be sure to check those out. And the final thing is, if you haven't joined the free private mentorship community, the Client Closers, it's an incredible community full of like-minded people looking to scale their agency and level up in life. So if you want to check that out, go ahead and check out the link in the description. As always guys, hope everything's going well in your agency journey, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.